and then we're gonna do the just Theorycraft Day for the topic.
Yeah, I think so.
Fair enough.
Okay. She almost looked like
Yep.
she's just trying to be your mustache.
That's how she is all the time.
Oh. Fantastic. All right. Oh, I guess. Is it my turn to do the outro?
Think so.
Probably. Okay, let me just make sure I have that pulled up. All right. Are we ready?
Let's do it.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 69 of the TCCG Roundtable. We're your hosts, Dragon Rider, Dankestad, and Ron is not here this week. So we hope that everything is going okay with Ron and that he's doing well. But for now, it'll just be the two of us again. How are you
And
doing?
Yoshi.
And yes, and the
And
guest
doing well.
cat.
If you can see the video for this one, you'll see that I have my cat Yoshi just laying down right on my chest. And podcast or not, I don't think I'm getting her to leave anytime soon. So yeah, she's our third host for the week. But I'm doing great, Don. How are you?
Doing pretty well. It's been an exciting week, I feel like. It's been a
Yeah.
lot going on.
Yes, and well, the personal stuff has not been fantastic for me. The stuff in the world of games has been quite fun.
Yeah.
Been recording some videos for World of Wild Hearts. We've got the community night for that, which I will actually be leading tonight. So come by and play if you're looking to learn a new game. And outside of card games, I've been playing some Rivals of Ether too. And when my internet connection agrees with me, I'm having a great time.
Yes. And it was not agreeing with you very well earlier, unfortunately.
Nah, but that's the price we pay for living in Ohio. It's a trade-off. You get a bad internet connection, and in return, you get Ohio. So, it's quite the deal. I can assure you.
I was gonna say, is that a trade-off? Because that sounds like maybe two bad things put together.
I didn't say it was a good trade-off, Don.
That's fair. Oh no. Oh, poor Ohio. Is it though?
Um, but anyway, what did you do yesterday? I think you were doing something fun this week, weren't you?
Yeah. This week, yesterday specifically, was the theory crafting for Hearthstone. So that was really exciting. Basically, we got early access to play the new cards for the upcoming set, Great Dark Beyond, and man, it was fun. The 6 hours just like flew by. It went fast. I
Yeah.
was pretty impressed though overall with I guess we're just going to jump into it because I don't know, like, we don't really have any
Boom.
other news or anything. So just the same
Yeah.
old, everything's being revealed right now for a bunch of different sets. And then things are coming out soon, very soon. Um, but yeah, I was very impressed with the variety that I saw in like the classes and even what people are playing in the classes. there was a lot of stuff going on. There was
Yeah.
a lot of different things that people were trying. So that was cool.
Yeah. And I mean, as a spectator, I mostly got to see what you were playing, which I'll let you talk about a bit later. But seeing the sort of different strategies was so interesting because while this expansion has seemed to be, kind of about the starships, there are a lot of new ways that the classes can go faster, and the starships didn't necessarily define the format, even though they were present.
Yeah. Yeah, they definitely didn't feel like they were taking over, which like is good, I think, but also talking about the starships, I was a little bit bummed because I feel like the starships ended up being a little bit slow. And I was really excited for starships. Like I think they're still cool. It's a really cool mechanic, but they're a little bit slower than I expected them to be. So it was yeah. That didn't feel great.
Yeah. Well, I think it's also a little interesting too because a lot of the classes that you would generally associate with the slower game plan that starships have didn't get starships. So, Warrior and Priest, notably, are not starship classes, and they tend to be sort of the control staples. So, we'll have to see over time if more controlling varieties do come up, maybe if they're a mini set edition for these classes, or if in the short term they find a way just to make use of the neutral tools and go to space anyway. Because I think that could be pretty cool and something I will definitely be checking out once the set goes live.
Yeah, and it was really interesting too because I feel like one thing that I noticed was a lot of the payoffs for the starships were actually when you're building a starship and not necessarily like launching the starship itself. So that was kind of interesting because it really kind of made you think like, do I even want to launch the starship? Like maybe I just leave it as is and maybe you only run like a couple of starship pieces, and then you'll have one or two starship pieces in your building, and that's fine because you just leave it like that and you actually just use it for the benefits of the cards that take use of when you're building a starship. So that's that was what felt notable to me. Now again, that was just theory crafting, so that was, kind of restrictive, right? We had to have at least 10 of the new cards in our decks. So things are going to change when it goes live. And we also have the Tavern Brawl, the early access Tavern Brawl coming up next week that people are going to be able to play some of the new cards and stuff with. They'll be able to open their packs and play that. So I'm interested to see what people do with that, but that's going to be like a different meta as well from what we're going to have at launch because it's not the full standard like set of cards. It's only going to be the core set and 1 year of cards like this current year. So kind of interesting.
Definitely. And, it's kind of a cool preview too, because even though it doesn't feel like it yet, rotation is kind of lurking around the corner. And getting to see sort of how those cards are all going to play together will give some good context for what we might see next year.
Yeah. Yeah, but I'm really interested to see what else happens with the starships in particular just because like my experience and it sounded like other people's experience was that they were a little slow um
Hmm.
overall, but again, that's just during theory crafting, so we'll see what else comes out of them. But and then of course if there's any more synergies that come out during the mini set in a couple of months as well.
Yeah, you never know. In the meantime, though, I figured it might be a good idea to sort of talk class through class, maybe give our impressions, maybe some about what we saw during the games. And I don't know, even though the starships are not always the most exciting cards, there are some powerhouse ones. So just going down the list, starting out with Death Knight, I'm going to say the Airlock Breach, when it got revealed, blew my socks off. And when I saw it played on stream, it blew my socks off. That card was something else. So
Yes.
it's a 6 mana card, got a Blood Rune and an Unholy Rune, and it summons a 5/5 undead with taunt and gives your hero +5 health. And it spends 5 corpses to do it again. So if you have the corpses, you get 2 5/5 taunts, and you get 10 more max health on your character, which is really, really something.
Yeah, that one was pretty good. I think, honestly, even if you didn't have the corpses to spend to do it again, it was still fine. But the value definitely was even better when you did have the corpses to repeat it. So yeah, that one felt pretty good. That one was exciting to play. I didn't I liked it when I saw it, but playing it I was like, okay, yeah, this feels pretty good.
Yeah, it's definitely a really exciting card, and for me, I've always liked playing with Blood Unholy or Unholy Blood Death Knight and trying to lean a little more control, but missing that extra health from Vampiric Blood has always been really, really tough. Now, though, you can get it without dipping into Triple Blood, so pretty cool incentive to maybe try some new control archetypes for Death Knight.
Yeah, I think for me, the card that stood out for Death Knight, well, there were two that really stood out to me. First is Suffocate, which is just a common card, but it's a 4-cost shadow spell. Destroy a minion. If you're building a starship, also destroy a random neighbor. And man, being able to pick a minion to destroy for 4 and potentially be able to destroy 2 was pretty good. That one felt really nice. And it doesn't have any rune requirements, so you can play it in like a variety of Death Knight decks.
Mm-hmm.
And as I mentioned, that's the requirement for just having a starship that you're building isn't terribly difficult to pull off. You just have to have one starship piece that's died, and then you're building a starship. So you can definitely be able to do that.
Yeah. Plus, both of Death Knight's starship pieces in class cost 2 and 3. So Suffocate will just be curved into often if you have them in your hand, which is really nice.
Yeah. So definitely felt like it was pretty easy to get that effect. And even though it says a random neighbor, it's still a neighbor. So it kind of already limits which, random, quote unquote, random minion is going to get hit. But I felt like the cases that I used it wasn't really random, or it was the same minion, like against Paladin, when they played 3/3/3s with Divine Shield. Either way, whichever random neighbor it hit was going to be the same result. And then there was another case where I used it where there was literally only 2 minions on the board, and I got to clear them both. So it didn't feel random at all. So to me, that effect was just like non existent. It just was killing what I wanted to kill.
Yeah, it's quite the card, and I always like the cards that focus a little bit on positioning and make people pay attention to that. So it's cool because you can get extra mileage out of suffering or suffocate if your opponent isn't positioning well, and if you do, you can make theirs a little worse. So I think that it's fun to sort of test that skill a little bit every once in a while, and it's a good return to form.
Yeah. Speaking of extra mileage, the other card that I felt like really stood out to me was the legendary Exarch Maladar. It's a
Mm-hmm.
6-cost, 1 unholy rune, Draenei, 5/5. Battlecry, the next card you play this turn costs corpses instead of mana. Yeah, you can do some sick plays with that. I had an opponent who I think even coined it. They coined it out and then had the corpses to be able to play uh the Primus, their Titan. And I was like, well, and then yeah, that just snowballed from there. And then I had a game where I had built up a bunch of corpses and I got to spend 17 corpses and play out the Ceaseless Expanse. That was pretty sweet.
That's awesome.
That was fun.
Yeah, I'm like really in on this idea of just dropping Reno on 6. Because it's not that hard to get 10 corpses, is it? And you can just boop, play that. I do wonder too, how does this interact with climactic necrotic explosion? Do the 10 corpses you'd spend to cast it count toward the effect? Or do you just get what you had and those 10 don't count?
Um, I'm not sure how that ordering works. I know that the deck recipe is a rainbow Death Knight, so
Mm-hmm.
definitely people are trying it, but I'm not sure how exactly how that interaction works, like what order it goes in.
Yeah, we'll just have to see. And well, I see in the comment here, we got someone in chat saying that blood, blood, blood might also be low key gross, and I'm inclined to agree. 8 hands from beyond, I think, is kind of the cool incentive for that. Being able to destroy both players' decks except the 8 highest cost cards in each is pretty neat. And that's especially good if that wouldn't make you run out of cards. And maybe in a Highlander deck where you need to make some cuts, there are some neutrals from this set too that you could include to take the game even longer, which I think is neat. Yes, yes, Kil'jaeden is the one I am thinking of, Kapalua. So yeah, that is a pretty kind of cool build that you could try and give a shot. Anything else you want to
Yeah.
say about Death Knight, Dawn, or are we good to move on to the next class?
Nope, let's move on.
So we have Demon Hunter, and I'll be honest with you, I was not really impressed when I saw these cards revealed, and I was even less impressed when I saw them played. It just seemed really, really tough for the Illidan fans this time around.
Yeah, I tried some Demon Hunter, and the crewmates they felt a little expensive. Like they felt slightly slow, just like the starships. So it
Mm-hmm.
was, because you had to, if you wanted to pull out multiple crewmates, the way crewmates work is when you play one, it pulls out any like that are next to them in your hand. So you could pull out like three crewmates that are all next to each other just by playing one, but you have to set that up to make sure there's no cards in between the crewmates. So you have to play those first, and then you have to spend 4 to play a crewmate. So it did feel a little slow and clunky, and they didn't really have the effects to make a lot of impact immediately like you would want them to if you're spending more. So, yeah, you
Yeah.
got multiple bodies, but at the same time, it was just kind of like most of the time it felt like when I was doing it, my opponents could just kind of and ignore them and just like hit my face or do whatever they were still going to do, or they were able to clear them pretty easily. So it felt a little disappointing with that.
Yeah. Yes, Yoshi is wanting to participate in this too, but I know when I first saw the crewmate cards spoiled, I didn't know what they would cost since they didn't show us right away. And I had just assumed that the crewmates would be 3 or maybe even 2 mana, which seemed not knowing that they would play the ones next to each other. But now seeing that, they're 4, that just seems so expensive for something so conditional. And, I would hope maybe that Voronai Recruiter picks up some more stat points, the crewmates get a little cheaper, or even Eldritch Being might put your hand in cost order so all the crewmates are next to each other. Like, there are a lot of things that they could do to try and make this work a little bit better, but I do think it's a cool idea, and, the flavor is obviously very fun.
Yeah. Yeah, same. Although the flavor is very fun, the class as a whole felt a little lacking. It just
Yeah.
kind of felt like underwhelming. I will say in my testing, there was one card that felt like it really stood out, and that was Infiltrate, which is a
Ooh.
3 mana spell. Choose a minion, deal 3 damage to all other minions. And being able to choose like just one of your minions and then dealing 3 damage to all other minions felt pretty nice, especially for
Yeah,
3. Like it felt like a good board clear.
definitely. And if you have a singular minion already, you can use that just to mop up theirs, which is which is good. I'm a fan of Infiltrate, and then Warp Drive also seems like quite the card if you can get a starship going. But how are we feeling about the Demon Hunter starship pieces?
Uh okay. They they seemed to be strong on their own, but again, they didn't the class as a whole I think is just suffering a little bit. So maybe I need to test it a little bit more. But
Yeah.
on paper they seem like they would be good.
Mm-hmm. And then Zortoth is another card that seems like on paper it could have some potential, but not sure what sort of deck would want it, and I don't think you could really build around him with the options available in the Theorycraft stream.
Yeah, I think the way that I see it being played is in like a more aggressive deck where you're kind of playing out a lot of your hand and stuff anyways. Um
Mm-hmm.
so that you don't have a lot of cards in your hand and then you can set that off pretty easily and deal 5 to all enemies, but um it felt a little tough to do in theory crafting like you said, just cuz you have to have so many of the new cards. So
Yeah.
I felt like I couldn't really build like the quite aggressive deck that I would want to, because of the having to have 10 cards from the new set. So we'll see.
Yeah. I guess we'll just have to wait and find out. Interestingly, though, he is a demon, and with Window Shopper, there might be some potential again for that to come back if we're going to be throwing out 1 mana deal 5 to everything. So I feel like we might be seeing a little bit more of Zortoth once, the full constructed format rolls around and the set releases. But all right.
Yeah.
Next up is Druid. And I'll be honest with you, Don, I have no idea how some of these cards even work, so you're going to have to give me a hand with it.
Okay. Hopefully I can.
So, did we see any play from Ulu the Everdrifter? This is the 5 mana 6/5 legendary beast that each turn this is in your hand, gain 2 random choose 1 choices.
Some people might have tried it, but I didn't, and I didn't see anyone playing it against me. So I just have that limited experience. I didn't get to catch any other streams and watch like what other people were doing, since I had been streaming myself. So,
Mm.
I didn't see it personally.
Yeah, well, looks like the chat might have our back. So, unfortunately, it seems like gain 2 random choices does not mean that it continues to gain them. So you won't be able to do like 4 choose ones if you held onto it for 4 turns. You just get the most recent one. So I'm a little bit concerned that that's slow, but you were telling me though there were some good things going on with Cosmic Phenomenon. That was a card you said was pretty good.
Yeah. So Cosmic Phenomenon is the 5 mana arcane spell. Summon 3/2/3 elementals with taunt. If your board is full, give your minions +1/+1. I did also test because I wasn't sure, so where I was like, well, pretty much like for science, let's try it. Uh, this does a mix potentially. So, like for example, I had a board that had a starship that was building and then 4 minions. So I had 5 spots on my board filled, and I played Cosmic Phenomenon. It gave me 2 of the 3 taunts and then buffed my board +1/+1. So it did both because my board had been full from summoning the taunts. So that was pretty sweet. And I also saw other people playing it who did well, and it definitely felt like that was a kind of pivotal card, honestly, for being able to kind of just get on board, go for tempo, build up your board, and buff it, and then be able to just kind of end games with that. So yeah, it seemed really strong.
Yeah, I know. At least like for me on the Starship front, the Starlight Reactor definitely is a card that interests me because after you cast an arcane spell, recast it. And Druid's got some pretty powerful arcane spells this time around in Standard. We have I believe, what is it? The Sleep with the Stars is pretty big value if you can recast that late in the game. So that could be something to have an eye on. And yeah, just with the mage cards as well, there are some other good options in there. I can see maybe some sort of spell damage druid using the starship kind of as an engine for that being a deck that gets tried out.
Yeah. I did see some people trying it, and I tried out some druid overall. Distress Signal felt pretty decent too. That's
Mm-hmm.
the 4 mana arcane spell. Summon 2 random 2 cost minions and refresh 2 mana crystals. Um, so that along with the Starlight Reactor and then being able to follow it up with Cosmic Phenomenon after just getting some stuff on the board, felt really solid.
Yeah, I mean that rate is just incredible. Like essentially 2 mana for 2 random 2 drops is awesome. And it is
Yeah.
an arcane spell. If you double it later, it's free. There's
Yep.
lots of good stuff going on.
Yes.
But yeah,
Um,
just making sure. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Don.
no, you're good. I was gonna say I didn't really see a ton of the other stuff. Like I saw people trying the Starship stuff and Arcane stuff, but I didn't really see the other pieces. So like the Stargrazer and Ulu, Final Frontier. I didn't see people playing those, so I can't really speak to those, but they didn't seem like they were maybe piquing as many people's interest as the actual like starships and arcane stuff, which understandable because the starships and arcane stuff I think for druid seem really cool and seem like they have a lot of synergies. So
Totally. I will say I think Stargrazer definitely catches my eye as kind of a meme deck card because I really want to do like a kind of mostly spell druid with Colifero and try to fill my board with Stargrazers and then just hit my opponent for 40 or 48. That seems like a an interesting way to end the game, and I wonder how feasible it is. But we'll just have to see. All right, but Druid's pretty cool. How about Hunter? This is I think your kind of favorite from the day, so how was that?
yes. Oh my gosh, yeah. Hunter was absolutely my favorite. I had built a basically a death rattle deck that had a little bit of the discover stuff in it. Um Actually I think I built a deck that was pretty much like I used all the cards. I was just like put all the hunter cards in except for maybe like one or two. But I built some death rattle stuff that was really based around Gorm the World Eater, the legendary, which is 3 mana 12/12 beast, dormant for 5 turns. At the end of your turn, destroy the minion to the right of this one to awake 1 turn sooner. And yeah, so the whole synergy that I built was having these death rattle minions like the eggs and different stuff, like the extraterrestrial egg, which is another new one, um, that all have death rattles. So you place it to the right of Gorm, and then it would, at the end of the turn, it would destroy the 0 attack eggs, giving me something better, and it would awaken a turn sooner. And so it on average, I think I was awakening Gorm every 3 turns. I had a couple of where I got like maybe 2 turns where I got to do it, but it was about 3 turns. On the third turn, it would awaken. So pretty sweet there.
Yeah.
And I had some synergies where I also was able to discover and find a copy of Gorm and get copies from the mystery eggs. So yeah, I got multiple Gorm, not discover, but I would get copies of Gorm. And yeah, there was one game I had 3 of them, which was pretty amazing.
Yes.
Pretty amazing. Forced my opponent to deal with multiple 12/12 bodies. So that was pretty sweet. I had a lot of fun with Hunter.
Yeah. I definitely also feel like this class vibes with me a lot this set. Detailed notes is a lot like reconnaissance, but you're always going to hit that larger beast that you can get out a little bit early, which is cool. And with the scout, you can get 2 copies of it. But Alien Encounters, I think, was just the card that to me stood out a lot as sort of the big high roll. Since if you are able to get all of those discovers and play an extra copy of Alien Encounters, you can just fill your board up so quickly, and other board based decks will have a lot of trouble punching through.
Yeah, I think even discounting alien encounters to 4, like even just discovering once and then playing, you get 2/5 beasts with taunt for 4 mana still felt pretty good. And then
Yeah.
obviously if you did even, more discovers than that and it was cheaper, then it just felt fantastic. But that was one where it definitely felt good. At first I was like, this seems expensive. How much are you going to be able to discover? But yeah, it felt pretty solid. Um, the Rengari Scout as well, the 1 mana 1/2 Draenei, after you discover a card, get a copy of it, also helped me discover copies of of Gorm or my eggs or my egg activators like the Ravenous Kraken or Yodeler. Uh, but I also got to discover a lot of beasts. So like I would do Rengari Scout on turn 1 and then detailed notes to discover a beast that costs 5 or more. I did get to discover Gorm off of that, but I was also discovering things like Mukla, which felt great because then I was just I think there was even a game where I just discovered Mukla against a slower class and I got to fill their hand with bananas, and then they were I think they were trying to do I think I got to do it in a game versus a shaman as well that was trying to do asteroid stuff, and I filled their hand and then they top decked and burned an asteroid, so they just totally like cut off their game plan, which felt sweet. But there was actually some pretty good discovers with that, and then being able to follow it up with 2/5 taunts to try to protect the bigger things that I had behind that was nice.
Yeah. And like looking at the options too that you can hit for more than 5, there are so many cool ones. Like if you are able to say hit Sasquatch and then play out your Sasquatch to discover another minion that costs more than 5, can be like a kind of cool combo. Obviously King Plush, Powerhouse, Mugla and Hollowhound. Like there's lots of cool things you can do. So I'm excited to try out Hunter, and I don't know. I'm hoping I can discover some Reno cards with this tracking hero power and play my Reno lots of times with Scout. That could be cool. But many directions for Hunter that seem interesting.
Show's over. Get out of here. Get out of here. you,
Wait,
you, you want to play Reno? No. No.
no?
Bad.
But-
No.
Okay. But if I play the second Reno, is that like a double negative? Is it good?
No. Uh,
All right.
no.
Well,
I just have to give you grief.
I know. But hey, speaking of grief, how about this? How about those mages, huh? These these cards are all over the place, but I like where they're going with all of it.
Yes.
So first and foremost, though, Exarch Hataru is my kind of Hearthstone card. That is just quite the win condition. It's 5 mana, 5/5 Draenei, legendary. With Battlecry, discover a spell and reduce its cost by 1. If you play it this turn, repeat this effect. So pretty reminiscent of Instructor Fireheart, but you also have a discount, and your spells that you get can cost 0. So really, really cool to get a big value swing from it.
Yeah, I saw somebody pop off with it. It was I was kind of impressed just watching them. I was like, wow, they're just kind of popping off. Like they're just going off with it. It was pretty cool. I didn't actually try that one out myself, but I did try the elementals and the fire stuff. And I also
Mm-hmm.
tried a Draenei deck with Arcwing pilots. I did get to have a turn where I had like 3 Arcwing pilots at the end of the turn because I just like spell burst and then summoned one and then played another cheap spell and then summoned one and then played another cheap spell. So I had like 3 or maybe 4. And that was just too slow. It felt like,
Yeah.
very limited game size. I will say, like this experience is only based off of 6 hours of play, where I tried to play a variety of decks and classes. So, like, very limited number of games. That's the caveat to all of this, but it did feel a little slow. The elementals and the fire spells felt pretty solid, though. I will say they felt pretty good. Um, and huge shout out to
Yeah.
Sway Bay, who has her fire elemental deck recipe in game. That was awesome. I had to start the stream with that. It was like, I'm playing Sway Bay's deck. That's the first thing I'm doing. But it felt pretty good.
Yeah. I can say though, like, I wonder if anyone's gonna get the meme dream. You play your Mesadoon, you split your Saroon, you play your Saroon twice, you play the 4-drop to fill your board with 3/2 fire spell damage plus 2s. And then you play 2 free solar flares, which have 14 spell damage each and goes 32 damage for the OTK. Very, very consistent, as you can tell. Sounds really reliable, but technically possible. So, would be cool to see that sometime, but seems like you need a lot to go your way to make that happen.
Yeah. I will say one of the cards that stood out to me specifically in the mage set was Solar Flare. That's the 5-cost fire spell, deal 2 damage to all enemies, costs 1 less for each elemental you control. Yeah, there was a time I got to play it for 0, and that felt sweet. Uh, you're only dealing 2, but you're dealing it to all enemies, including their face, for 0, and it's a fire spell, so there's other synergies with fire spells, but that was, yeah, that felt like a cool card.
Yeah. Blazing Aggression is one that seems interesting to me, just because I do wonder if the Elemental and Fire spell deck can go off the back of a 3-mana 3/1 that draws 3. That's really compelling. So, I don't know. And like, you don't necessarily have to play at tempo. Maybe you're just building up to your supernova and your big value will get you there. But it's definitely a deck that you can play in different ways. So, last question before we move on from Mage Dawn. Did you play yourself or see anyone try the Pocket Dimension?
I did not. No. I was kind of bummed. I mean, I didn't play it. Again, it was so hard to squeeze in, like, trying to play everything, but that's a really interesting card that I definitely looked at, but I didn't see anybody trying it.
Yeah. I will say, just looking at it a little closer now, I'm a bit disappointed the devs let the cat out of the bag and just said in the flavor text that 3 is about the number of cards you get, which is funny to me. like I crunched the numbers myself a little earlier, and it's like mostly 3, sometimes 4, but those are sort of the two numbers you'll usually get. It's just very funny though to see them like, yeah, there's about 3 cards. But pretty cool. All right, Paladin. So I'm sure no one played Paladin. Pretty whatever, right? Don't play these cards when the set comes out. Nothing to see here.
Yeah. Please don't play these cards when the set comes out, because I absolutely hated playing against Paladin. Nobody play this, please. Oh.
Kidding aside,
Yeah.
the new Librams seem really, really, really good.
Yeah, they do.
And I think that relative to the other classes, what Paladin got seems to be sort of the most cohesive package of cards that I think we've seen.
Yeah. Definitely agree with you there. It was I saw quite a few Paladins yesterday. People were trying a little bit of like slightly different variants, but it definitely kind of had a very similar feel in terms of, okay, they would play out their weapon, the Interstellar Star Slicer, which reduces the cost of Librams by 1 this game. And then they would play Libram of Faith to get 3/3/3s with Divine Shield. And then they would oftentimes play a second Libram of Faith, put out more 3/3s with Divine Shield. And then they would play a bunch of the older Librams and play for buffs, and then just build up a couple of minions by giving it +1 repeatedly, and then smack me in the face, and then I would die, and that was it. Yeah. So that felt like my experience playing every time I played against them, and I was like, this does not seem very fun to play against. I'm sure it was fun for them to do that, but it didn't feel fun to play against.
Yeah, I do wonder if in Wild, if there is going to be some sort of Libram Paladin now that there's so much redundancy for discounting and getting Librams. But at least in Standard, I know we're going to see a lot. And we also have cards that let you, there's, what is it? There's the Sanaga from Showdown that lets you copy a spell when you draw it. And there's Interstellar Researcher that draws a Libram, so you're going to be able to get extra Librams on top of everything else and more discounts, and this deck is just going to be so strong.
Yeah. I did have one opponent as well that played Lumia, which is the legendary 6 mana 9/9 with lifesteal. After a hero takes damage, they become immune for the rest of the turn. And that's when I was trying to kill my opponent with the Gorms with the Death Rattle Hunter. So I was like, okay, so I'll hit them for 12 and then they're immune, and now the rest, like my other Gorm does nothing, or okay, my other minions now have to try to make trades. But Lumia herself is a pretty big body with lifesteal, so it also made it really awkward. And then they had buffed it, so she was like a 12/10 or something. I don't know what it was exactly, but yeah, something very large and ridiculous. So that one felt pretty strong as well.
Yeah, it's such an interesting effect too, just because she's going to, have like sort of this pseudo taunt, but it's kind of better than taunt because you can't even like go over with burn spells or anything like that. You actually have to deal with the Lumia before you can start trying to damage your opponent. So I'm pretty interested because of course, 6 mana 9/9 with a lifesteal is probably the most aggressively statted minion we've ever gotten in Paladin. And at least without an effect with a downside. And she seems very, very cool. So try her out. And then Orbital Satellite is another card that, at least when I saw revealed, I didn't think much of it. But looking at the pool of Draenei and seeing what is available, that card is just incredible. Being able to see your key pieces in this Libram deck more times is super powerful. And even the neutral Draenei are at least serviceable enough that you're never going to feel bad playing this card.
Yeah. Yeah, it seemed pretty solid. Also, this is just like a side note, but talking about Draenei, it is pronounced Draenei. And if anybody has questions on how to pronounce it, shout out to Leo, Minty Fresh on Twitter. That's his like handle that he goes by. But Leo on the dev team put out he did like a rap on how to pronounce Draenei and some other card names. And it's fantastic. So highly recommend going and watching that. It legit slaps. It was great.
I'm definitely going to be doing that after this.
Yes, this is amazing.
And speaking of Draenei, we got Priests next, everyone's favorite class. So, yeah, I can say looking at them, none of the Priest cards really jumped out to me as cards I would want to build around and take toward like a sort of new deck style. But you were saying though that you saw some pretty cool Priest builds when you were playing your games. So, what do we see from Priest?
Yeah, so it was really interesting. I did see like a Draenei priest using Ascara, which is the next Draenei you play summons a copy of itself. And that was pretty interesting. But it kind of just played a lot of the neutral Draenei's as well and just kind of went for tempo. So that was pretty good. And then I saw a Reno priest, which did well, but I was like, it didn't really feel new. There was a couple of new cards, but it didn't really feel super new. But it did use the Cure, the Light Beyond, which is the legendary 3-mana 3/3 spell burst. Summon a random 3-cost minion, and holy spells don't remove this spell burst. Which is definitely pretty interesting. I was like, that kind of has soft taunt. I kind of want to remove that because I know that Priest is going to be playing holy spells, so wanted to get rid of that as quickly as I could. And then I think really the thing that they were using was the holy spells in that Reno Priest. It was like, give a minion +2/+1 and Divine Shield. Deal 3 damage to a minion and give a random minion in hand +3 health. Those were definitely things that it was using as well. And then there was even a Gravity Lapse, which is 0 cost. Set every minion's attack and health to the lower of the two. So that was kind of I can't remember what I was playing at the time, but it was a detriment to my board for sure.
Yeah. Gravity Lapse is so interesting. It's not obvious how to combo it right now, but historically, I think every 0-mana Priest card has seen competitive play. So I would not be surprised if Gravity Lapse got a spot as well eventually. But you had brought up Orbital Halo too. That's another card that in any sort of board-based deck just seems a bit absurd, since that's often just going to be 0 mana for 2/1 in Divine Shield, and that rate is phenomenal for a buff. Because that's probably worth around 1.5 mana for 2/1 versus 1/2. So being able to get it for 0 is quite nice.
Yeah. All right.
So we talked a lot about Priest, more than you expected.
Yes.
If you've seen our show before. So now it's Rogue time. What the heck is happening here?
Yeah, the rogue cards feel a little bit all over to me. But I did see a decent chunk of rogue in the time that I was streaming. people were playing Quasar, which is the 6-mana epic spell. Shuffle your hand into your deck, reduce the cost of cards in your deck by 3. And for some of the games that I saw against the Quasar Rogue, that didn't go super well for them, because then they were just kind of top decking. But there was one deck, I believe it was against Zacho, who was playing a Quasar Rogue and then had kind of like the weapon to be able to draw after you attack. And I forget what the name of it is. They're the location that
A Knick-Knack Shack.
Yes, that's what it was. Yeah, and they got to draw. So Zacho was just kind of like, okay, I'll play Quasar, and then got to draw multiple cards and kind of refill his hand, and then was doing stuff with Sonya, Water Dancer, and Grifta for the kind of big combo, just like we saw at the last Masters Tour. So that was like, I see. Okay, that's kind of what the combo is trying to do. I'm not sure if that was the same version that the other people that I played against who were trying Quasar Rogue were doing, but yeah, Zacho got to play that and pulled it off very well. And
Yeah.
you know, I was at 6, like basically got me down from like 24 health, killed me from 24 health in one turn. So yeah.
So Quasar is actually a really cool one because before this set, I had been doing some theory crafting with some other friends. And the 2 decks that we came up with were something a lot like the list Zacho played, and then another one that was a weapon burn deck that doesn't run any cards over 3 mana except for a singleton copy of Quasar. And the deck has ways to tutor out the Quasar. And if you have a Knick-Knack Shack or 2 on the board, guess what? You're going to be able to draw every card in your deck and play the rest of your deck as soon as you can resolve Quasar. And since you're shuffling in your hand, you know how much burn you have. So you will often be able to count to 30 and just end the game as soon as you play this card. So it's pretty neat. Definitely will create some really odd decks, but I love the concept. So, did you see anyone trying out the sort of Starship game plan though?
I did a little bit, but they didn't really get to do anything with it. So that was, I was kind of like, they discovered a Starship piece and then got to play it, and then they were building a Starship, and that's about as far as it went. So it didn't seem like it really did much. Again, that's, only 1 or 2 games, so I don't know if that's the actual gameplay of it or if that was just the limited games that I saw with it, but it seemed to not feel as great as Quasar. There was definitely a lot more Quasar Rogue, so people were definitely intrigued by that a lot more seemingly than the Starship stuff.
Yeah. And then, of course, the last question. Combo Rogue. Is it finally here? Does Festival of Legends get to finally fulfill its prophecy and get Combo Rogue back into Standard? Or are we going to be waiting another few years for that?
It did seem like people were trying it, but I think they were also trying it in combination with Quasar, so not really sure if that combo, pun intended, is the ideal way to use the combo cards or not, but people tried it a little bit.
Yeah. Pressure Points definitely gives off that sort of palm reading vibe of discounting your whole hand and letting you just pop off. So who knows? Might be worth looking into, but all right. We got Rogue, Shaman. So these cards seemed absolutely nuts. And I know that there was this game where you had gone to take your dog out or something on your stream and you went to spectate. and I do not recall who you spectated, but that shaman deck had produced so much value. I was just lost. I think they had like 6 or 7 nebulas in hand. It was just absurdity.
That's fantastic. I don't know because I was away from the computer, so I didn't get to see that, but that's amazing. Nebula is
Yeah.
a really fun card. So
hmm
Nebula is the 9-mana arcane spell. Discover 2 8-cost minions to summon with Taunt and Elusive. So pretty high cost, but very fun.
Yeah, it's pretty neat what you can do with it. You also can cheat it out a little bit with that package of Planetary Navigator and Cosmonaut. Planetary Navigator is a Draenei with the next Draenei you play, costs 2 less, but has Overload 2. And then Cosmonaut's a 7 mana 5/5 Draenei that says Battlecry, discover a spell from your deck, reduce its cost by 5. So you can sort of see that natural synergy there where you play the Navigator on 2, you play the Cosmonaut on 5, you're overloaded, you only have 4 mana, but guess what? Nebula costs 4. So you can, in theory, play a 6 mana Nebula on curve if you're just sort of following that, which is pretty neat and definitely powerful.
Yeah.
But you know, I'm partial to asteroids. This mechanic seems a bit ridiculous to me. Seems very powerful, and combined with Shutter Block and some of those synergies, it looks a little bit absurd, and I'm all for it. I'm gonna have a deck with 60 cards in it, and like 40 of them will be asteroids. Pretty much immediately once this set drops. I think this is probably the thing I want to try the most, and it just looks
Yeah.
like a good time.
Yeah, there was a lot of people trying it yesterday in theory crafting, and a lot of different versions. There was some that were like just trying to go all in on the asteroids and then try to draw and go in that way. Some people were trying it um, just like in combination with other stuff. I saw somebody, I believe it was Baby Bear, who was trying it with Incendious. So shuffled in the Incendious stuff and asteroids, and yeah, that did quite a bit of damage. Yeah, it turns out. I was like, oh, so that was, and Shutter Block was the other part.
Yes.
So Shutter Block in there to really get all the effects. And then the thing that I saw some people trying as well, and I tried it a little bit, was some combinations of some of these cards like Meteor Storm with Hagatha to draw the cards that spells that cost 5 or more and put them onto a slime. So you could get this effect. And I believe Baby Bear actually pulled off a Hagatha into Shutter Block into the slime that casts Meteor Storm. So it shuffled in 15 asteroids into the deck. And yeah, it was quite a lot. Quite a lot.
Yeah. And then if you have a card like Murmur, you can make that deck go very, very fast.
Mm-hmm.
The Murmur is a 6/6 for 6 legendary elemental with your Battlecry minions cost 1, but immediately die after being played. That card just seems so absurd to me.
Yeah.
Just another really, really loopy mana cheat tool that, you know, especially with Shutter Block, seems just excellent.
Yeah.
But yeah, Shaman's awesome. Best class ever. Warlock. So what are we doing
Warlock.
here?
Demons.
I'm demons.
Demons.
Demons, demons, demons.
Demons actually felt better than I expected them to. They felt pretty good. There was some people also trying some of the Starship stuff. I think especially with the Heart of the Legion piece, which is a 2 mana 3/2 lifesteal Starship piece. Because it's aggressively statted and it's lifesteal, which is pretty good. But yeah, demons actually didn't feel terrible. And turns out Abduction Ray, which is a 2-mana shadow spell, get a random demon, reduce its cost by 2, repeatable this turn. It's a good card. Very good card.
There's no way.
Very good.
That is
Yeah.
actually crazy.
It's so good.
So, like,
So
what's the
good.
play pattern there? You just Abduction Ray a bunch of times and then play all these discounted demons later, or try to go off with it in one turn? That's so
Um,
interesting.
no, actually, Abduction Ray, I mean, even playing it just once or playing it on like turn 4 or 5 twice, uh, seemed good enough. Like, you don't have to play it late game to do it multiple times. Just getting 1 or 2 demons off of it was good because reducing its cost by 2 was incredible. And from the games that I played and the games that I saw other people playing, like when I played against them, you didn't really care what demons you were getting, which I think is why it felt better than I expected. Because at first I was like, well, you don't really want random demons, right? Like you want to discover them, you want to pick certain ones. But when you can resummon them with Archimond, you're like, I don't really care what the demons are. You just care that you're refilling the board again. So that seemed like it was really good.
Yeah. I mean, like another card that I naturally look at too is Bad Omen. That's a card that also seems very powerful if you're doing the Starship plan. And kind of, we're just getting so much taunt for 6 mana now between this and the Death Knight card. It's a lot of big taunts on 6, so might be something you need to look to deal with if you are trying to build an aggressive deck, since a lot of the meta will have opportunities to make these big taunts if they want them. Black Hole also is like really interesting because if you ever end up in the mirror, I think it's the saddest card ever. 8 mana, destroy all minions except demons. Well, hopefully your
Yeah.
opponent is not also running a demon deck.
Yeah, I didn't actually see anybody playing Black Hole, um, interestingly enough. So maybe they were running it and they just didn't draw it, but I don't think I saw it played.
Yeah. I mean, I think though, like it's pretty powerful to have a one-sided board wipe. So, it's no Gigafin, but pretty cool card still. All right. And last, maybe least, maybe not, we have Warrior. So, was Exarch Akama living up to the hype, or did we see other cards deliver for Warrior once things got going?
I think there were a couple other cards that actually stood out. Um, I did see some people trying like a Draenei Warrior, and Draenei is a little bit in combination with Spore Empress Moldera, which is a 6 mana 6/7. Start of game, shuffle 7 replicating spores into your deck. And the replicating spores are 5-cost spells that you play, and it summons a random 5-cost minion. But then your next ones will summon additional 5-cost minions. Like it stacks.
Yes.
And yeah, if you can actually play those out and kind of keep the board going, that was pretty gross.
Yeah, because
Pretty
by the time
gross.
you get to the first one definitely is painful to play. And even though Spore Empress Moldara has good stats for the cost, putting it in your deck is a bit tough. But once you get to that second and then beyond, those replicating spores are just amazing because getting 3 random 5 drops for 5 is really, really good. And,
Yeah.
for a warrior deck that wants to go long, they're going to have the means to make those plays.
Yeah. And then the other deck that I saw, like the Draenei Warrior, actually really revolved around Crystal and Great Mace, which is the 2 mana, 2 attack, 2 durability weapon. After your hero attacks, give all Draenei in your hand +2 attack. And the Stalwart Avenger, which is 4 mana, 7/2 Draenei. Immune while attacking. At the end of each turn, swap this minion's attack and health. So basically on their turn, on the opponent's turn, it was high attack. And then on my turn, it was high health. So it was a little bit difficult to get rid of. So then it stuck around, and then on their turn, it had high attack again, so then they could just hit me in the face for a bunch of damage. So, yeah.
Was this Draenei deck also Black Rock and Rollin' by any chance?
No, I don't think so. But that sounds interesting.
Might be pretty cool. And I just have to ask before we close out Warrior. Dwarf Planet. Did anyone do anything with this card? I love the concept of it so much, but just does not seem easy to justify.
No, I didn't see it at all. I probably would have just laughed if I saw it, but no, I didn't see anybody playing it.
Aw, shucks. Sad. You know, I do wonder if there are reasonable ways to cheat this out or keep this going, but I don't know. The 2-cost minions just seems so tough to make work, but I don't know. There might be something we're all missing.
Yeah.
And then I don't want to go through all of them, but coolest neutral card. Who you got?
One that I saw a lot of people trying was Kill Jaden, which is a 7 mana 7/7 demon. Battlecry, replace your deck with an endless portal of demons. Each turn they gain an additional +2/+2. So yeah, the animation, it literally puts a big portal over your deck, and your deck is no longer there. It's just a big portal that each turn you get a demon, and it like shows the animation of drawing a card and putting it in your hand, but it's a demon. And yeah, those were, I feel like I was still able to win games against Kill Jaden and the demon portal. But it was something that I saw a handful of times, so people were definitely trying it out.
Nice. And I'm going to cheat. And even though I said favorite card, I'm going to very quickly mention one just for flavor. Star Volpera. As a big Star Fox enjoyer, that made me very happy that it exists. But for gameplay, Ethereal Oracle, that card is a house. That card looks so good. And having spell damage and card draw on the same body is really interesting. Because those are two things that you don't always necessarily put together. But it makes for a really flexible neutral card that can power a lot of decks. So I'm excited to play this. It's a 3 mana 2/3 spell damage +1, spell burst, draw 2 spells. Very simple, but very cool card, and I could see it getting played an awful lot.
Yep. And I have to give a shout out to Exodar as well. Exodar is the 8 mana 6/10 battlecry. If you're building a starship, launch it and choose a protocol. Pretty neat card. I did get to play it once or twice. But the choices you get are to gain armor equal to the starship's health twice. Deal damage equal to the starship's attack, randomly split between all enemies. So that includes their face. And crew transport, get copies of all the starship's pieces and set their costs to 1. So definitely a bit of a later game thing, but if you're building a starship, which, again, I feel like the payoffs for a lot of the stuff is building the starship, and it's not like actually launching your starship. It's just having it there building, and then you get more of the payoffs from other cards. So this one, you kind of get a payoff because you're building it, and you get to launch it. So for 8 mana, you get this body plus your starship, and then you get to choose a protocol. So It did feel pretty sweet. It felt a little slow, again, just like all the kind of the starship stuff felt a little slow in general, but if you got to the point where you could play this and were in a position to play it, then it seemed good.
Yeah, I'm really drawn to putting this card in Control Priest and trying to use stuff like Power Chord Synchronize and maybe the Forge spell so I can get as many copies of this as I can and just keep choosing crew transport, just keep getting back these starships that are gaining me armor when they die, just over and over and over again, and then just launch them with the Exodar, get all the pieces back, go again and again. Seems like the experience that many Hearthstone players know and love Priest for, and I'm excited to deliver that in just a few weeks. All right. So boom. That is it for the Great Dark Beyond. But you know, surprisingly this is about space, not the Great Dark Beyond known as Ohio where I live, and well, that's kind of where you can find me, but Don, where can you find us?
That's right. Yes. Thank you everybody for joining us this week. And if you or someone you know would be interested in joining us, reach out to us. Let us know. Find us all over the place. You can email us at tccgroundtable@protonmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter at tccgroundtable. You can use our top pinned tweet for a link to our Discord or find that link in our description and show notes. You can check out the video version on my YouTube channel at Dragon Rider TCCG and wherever you can find audio podcasts. We also have a couple of cool plugs here. Inked Gaming. We are affiliated with Inked Gaming, so if you are interested in getting some sweet merch like playmats, like dice bags, other cool stuff like that, we have a link that you can use that helps directly support us. Amberflight Gaming, our esports team. I'm wearing the old hoodie with the old logo, but hey, it's there. So check out Amberflight Gaming. We are coming up on 5 years here in just like the next couple of weeks. So we're going to be doing a bunch of stuff, including running a Hearthstone tournament where there's going to be some bundles for the expansion and some card packs and some other stuff up for grabs. So definitely you want to tune in for that. Join the Discord or check us out on Twitter. You can find all the information there as well at A-Flight Gaming. And check out Amberflight Gaming's merch at explain.gg/store/AFG. Where can people find you individually, Dankus?
So you can find me on my YouTube channel, Dankstad CCG. Just yesterday, I put out my interview with Randy on the Wild Hearts team about the tactic style. The game's been a lot of fun, and I'll be running the community night tonight in that Discord server. So if you're gonna come play, want to try out some new cards and beat yours truly, this is your best chance to do so. You also can find me on Twitch as DankestadCCG, and you can find me on Discord as Dankestad, and of course in Ohio. What about you, Don?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at DonnieDK, DAWNIEDK. You can find me on Twitch and YouTube, Dragon Rider TCCG, and talking all things standard Hearthstone every week at the Doctor 3 HS podcast. And for Ron, who wasn't here this week, but you can find him on Twitter, Ron_HS, or you can find him streaming Monday through Friday, starting at 7 p.m. Eastern over at Ron Mexico HS. On Twitch. Did I say that? Twitch. TV.
They know where he is.
Yeah. Find him there. Go to that the purple site. The purple site. There you go. That's the one. Anyways, thank you all so much for tuning in this week. We hope you enjoyed this week's episode, and we'll see you at the roundtable.